Hey again, everybody. Hope you're doing well. This is Bobby Gaines, live and unscripted. So, today, I'm going to talk a little bit, surprisingly, about Celtics basketball. Yep, Boston Celtics, in this past offseason, sent away two of their most well-known players, maybe ever, Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett. Was a bit of a sentimental blow to a lot of fans. Even Paul Pierce seemed kind of, sorry that he had to leave, but I guess it had to be done. And right now, we're just looking at a Celtics team that is, a lot of people say it's a very bad team. I don't necessarily see it that way, but I'll get to that in a moment. Where my frustration stems from, though, is just kind of a lack of direction, I guess. Now, it's not Danny Ainge's fault that Doc Rivers wanted to leave town. I mean, that was pretty evident as soon as the Celtics were out of the playoffs that Doc wanted to go somewhere. It just so happened the Clippers had an opening, so Celtics got screwed in that deal, in part because Doc Rivers helped negotiate so that the Clippers wouldn't have to give up as much to bring them there, because, God forbid, Rivers doesn't have the best team possible. But that's another story. Looking at the Celtics going forward, and again, I'm not an executive, so maybe Danny Ainge does have something up his sleeve, but it just seems like, I don't know, because you get two different points of view, but it seems like they're just going to try to be bad, the Celtics. They're going to try to be bad, really bad. Not on purpose, but I mean, they're just not going to put a great team out there so that they lose a lot of games and they get this great draft pick. I hear it's Andrew Wiggins. I hear a few names. So if you get one of those draft picks, now you're a good team? Probably not, but it's a start. And that's just kind of where I get disillusioned by the whole thing, if that is the case. Now, there's 2 points of view, as I mentioned. From the executive point of view, obviously Danny Ainge in the front office for the Celtics, they're going to say, no, we want to win. We're going to win. We're not going to tank. That's ridiculous. We want people to come to the games. But from the fans' perspective, and from pretty much everyone else's perspective, it's not that the Celtics, not that it's a good thing to tank, but that they should tank. Because if they don't, then they're looking at a mediocre team that's not good enough to win the title, but not bad enough to be terrible, basically. So in other words, the Celtics, as constituted, are an okay team, like about 20 other teams in the NBA. An okay team. But an okay team doesn't win a title. But I'd like to argue at this point, there are only a few title contenders in any league. And this idea in the NBA, especially in the NBA, I mean other sports too, but in the NBA it's run rampant, where GMs will literally blow up their team because they figure, what's the point? There's only 3 or 4 superpowers in the NBA. We're not one of them, so let's see what we can do. And I don't want the Celtics to fall into that. Mainly because it's possible that they're just bad for a couple of years and they nab this number 1 pick and they're back. But they could be bad for like 10, 20 years, and that's not an exaggeration. You look at the Celtics from the late 80s when they were championship contenders. You look at how long it took them to get Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce. And, Paul Pierce they had, but, you look at how long it took them to get another title. And I'm not even gunning for the title. I know the championship is the ultimate goal of any sport. I understand that. But is it? I don't know. As a fan, I'm realistic. I know that my teams aren't going to win the title every year in football, baseball, whatever. Doesn't mean I'm not disappointed when they don't, but I know that they're not going to win it. I knew last year the Celtics weren't going to win the title. I knew the year before they weren't going to. But the fact that Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce, to me anyway, they were more than just talent. They were talented players. They could shoot the ball, they could defend, all that good stuff. But that's not what I remember them for. If you remember, they only won 1 title, and I don't mean to sound ungrateful, but they were there. They were in Boston for 6 years, Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, and that third guy whose name I won't say. They were there for 5, 6 years. They won 1 title, but along the way, they just gave their hearts out every single game. 2010, they were within 1 game of winning another title, after kind of knocking off LeBron's Cleveland Cavaliers, who were a very good team at the time. And they pushed the Heat to their limit too. So, this team just gave their all. And that, to me, is what I'm going to miss. Whether this team is good or bad, I just feel like they're not going to give their all. Either because they're trying to get a lottery pick, or they're just not that good, so they're just going to kind of lay flat. I feel like Rondo's not the kind of player that's going to be the leader that Pierce was or Garnett was. Rondo is good, but I don't think he makes anyone better. I know he has assists, technically, yeah, but if he's dishing the ball off to, I don't know, now at the moment, And actually, Chris Humphries and Jarrett Wallace, who are a couple of the players the Celtics got, aren't bad players. On the surface, this team really isn't that bad. And I only say that because in the Eastern Conference, you pretty much have Miami and everybody else. Now, there are some better teams. You have Chicago, you have the Nets, you have the Pacers. I'm not saying the Celtics are with them. I mean, the Knicks, you have to look at them. Although, who knows? The Knicks weren't expected to be that good last year, and they ended up being pretty good. So I'm not saying the Celtics are going to be the fourth or fifth best team in the conference, but at the same time, there's some pretty lousy teams in the Eastern Conference. There's the 76ers, there's the Bucks, there's some lousy teams, and there are some good teams. So basically, where am I going with all this? What is Danny Ainge's plan, basically? If the plan is to tank it, I really hope it's not, but I'm hoping, I don't know what I'm hoping, but I know the Celtics aren't going to be good for the next few years. But there's a difference between being not that good and being just absolutely dreadful. And if some people are okay with being absolutely dreadful because you're going to get this magical player, then so be it. That's not me. I don't want to watch a team win 10 games so that they can get a player. Because I don't necessarily think that guarantees you anything. It's called the draft lottery for a reason. It's not called the draft free pick. That's not what it's called. It's called the draft lottery. It's called, actually try to win during the season so that maybe you can get, better free agents or something. Like, I don't know. The Celtics don't take a lot of chances on free agents. I mean, they made that big trade, for the big three, but other than that, they brought in Shaq when he was past his prime. They bring in a lot of older players when they're kind of on their way out. Jason Terry, Rasheed Wallace, etc. But they never take a gamble, and I'm not saying they even need to. I mean, obviously, Dwight Howard would have been nice, but at the same time, I knew it wasn't going to happen. Even Josh Smith, or some of the other second-level free agents, Andrew Bynum, for example, Greg Oden, just some of these pieces that they could try to get. I'm not saying that's the end-all, be-all, but it's like the fact that they didn't just makes it seem even more like Danny Ainge is just swinging and missing on purpose, and just kind of hoping to take a mulligan this season and then start building. And I hope that's not the case, but we'll see. Anyway, this is Bobby Gaines, always live and unscripted. Hopefully the Celtics have a script for their future, because otherwise, I don't know. And I don't expect them to be a dynasty anytime soon. They don't need to be, but I'd like to see them be at least watchable. I think a lot of Celtics fans would agree with that, and maybe there's a plan I don't know about, but we'll see. I will see you all soon, and have a good day. Keep it unscripted.